This is insane. We recently had a massive lawsuit between a former game director at Bungie, Christopher Barrett, suing the company, claiming that they had let him go so that they didn't have to give him a $45 million payout. Now, this obviously made huge headlines, and we covered this in a previous video. We now have an update, and Sony is aggressively pursuing him and bringing the receipts. We actually have the text messages that were shared, and this is in regards to harassment at the studio inside Bungie's walls, right? From a game director to various different employees. The headline from this comes from Steven Totilo. It says, Sony has responded to the recent lawsuit filed by a Bungie veteran who said he was fired so they could get out of paying him $45 million. They deny the claims of a sham investigation and share text between him and female employees. Let's jump right into it. The gloves are off in a high-stakes lawsuit involving Sony, Bungie, and the veteran Bungie developer Christopher Barrett, who in December sued the gaming giant over what he alleges was a sham investigation that led to his firing over alleged misconduct. In Sony's first substantive response in the lawsuit, the company is denying Barrett's claims and leaving zero doubt that it believes the termination last year of Barrett's 25-year run at Bungie was justified. To emphasize its position, Sony's initial answer to Barrett's suit also includes 9 text communications between Barrett and female Bungie employees that it claims reveal his pattern of misconduct. In December, Barrett, a longtime senior designer on Destiny and former head of Bungie's upcoming Marathon project, sued Bungie and its owner Sony for defamation and breach of contract, among other claims. Barrett slammed Bungie's investigation, denied that he committed a fireable offense, and accused Sony of letting him go in order to deny him more than $45 million that Barrett was to be paid as a result of Sony's 2022 purchase of Bungie. So obviously he had a ton of stocks inside Bungie from being a 25-year veteran, and so he was let go, and he claimed that he was let go due to a sham investigation by Bungie and that he is owed $45 million, but the reality is that there's a lot of evidence that shows that he was doing some harassment on the job. And so now we actually get to see the evidence here, right? It's not just he said, they said type of thing. It's just, let me actually see the evidence here. Sony has a 128-page filing. Technically, an answer to Barrett's lawsuit is largely a line-by-line response to the December claim. Wow, so they really go in detail. That's what we're talking about. It's like a very aggressive response. It was entered into the docket at the Delaware State Court of Chancery last week and has been reviewed by GameFile. The new filing begins with what is essentially a preview of Sony's pending motion to dismiss the whole case. The document states that, in Sony's view, Barrett was terminated last March following HR complaints and in an investigation that allegedly revealed a pattern of behavior in which Barrett supposedly targeted a lower-level female employee he wasn't working with directly, initially engaged in friendly conversation, and progressively pushed boundaries with the employee by making subtle references to her physical appearance or expressing his interest in her romantically. Barrett attempted to create an unprofessional level of intimacy with his victims. To support this, Sony's filing includes excerpts of 9 written communications, texts, DMs, etc., including the following. Barrett similarly told Victim 3, I hope your boyfriend doesn't mind I text you a lot. Oof. I just worry, like I really enjoy texting you and talking. I don't want him to get the right idea. Later in the conversation when Victim 3 told Barrett she was busy, Barrett stated, I want your attention, so annoying. Okay. And just 3 weeks into Victim 5's tenure at Bungie, Barrett called her late in the evening while drunk and told her intimate details about his personal life and asked her about who she was dating and what her type was. He sent her a personal Instagram follow request to connect that night, which she did not accept. Okay. Barrett's side is calling foul on the filing, saying the texts are incomplete and don't amount to a fireable offense. I mean, it's definitely creepy behavior. It's weird behavior. Like, it's that, at least this first one, right? Like, he's obviously implying some weird stuff with this. We'll see what the, what the ruling is on it in a court. In a statement to GameFile, Barrett's lawyers blasted Sony's account in full. Sony continues to disingenuously cherry-pick text messages and alleged conversations and make unsupported and conclusory statements to defame Christopher and justify terminating him to avoid paying what he was owed under his employment agreements. It is telling that Sony does not include the full text messages as exhibits or the full content of these conversations, and nothing in Sony's response provides a legitimate legal or factual basis to terminate Christopher for cause. And that's where things can actually get kind of weird with court cases like this, because although it is questionable behavior, is it straight up like fireable? Like, obviously this is like he called her late in the evening. Like, if they actually had the transcript of this call, that might be one thing that might actually be better. But it's like, it's just kind of like there was a phone call and it was inappropriate type of thing. So like, you need the kind of like that hard evidence. Obviously this was a previous text that we have here, and this is definitely, you know, substantial and something worth noting, I think, in this case, and that could very well be the nail in the coffin for Christopher Barrett in his wrongful termination case. We'll see. It's telling that Sony does not include text messages as exhibits or the full content of these conversations, and nothing in Sony's response provides a legitimate legal. Got you. Christopher is confident that when all the evidence is presented, it will be clear that Sony engaged in a scheme to strip him of his role and the equity awards he earned for his 25 years of loyal service to the company. Lawsuits are, of course, different sides of a story. One may or may not be fully adjudicated in court. The Barrett story intertwines two major elements of recent game industry history. One is the allegation of workplace misconduct and toxicity that have led to reckonings at companies such as Ubisoft, Riot, and Bungie. And two, a flurry of mergers and acquisitions due to a COVID lockdown-fueled gaming boom that resulted in some early winners, and as the industry now struggles, a growing number of losers. Barrett's argument per his December lawsuit is that Sony fired him to spare themselves from paying out what GameFile calculates around $84 million in total, really, in bonuses he was promised from Sony, charged up by a deal spree that saw Microsoft grabbing Activision and Take-Two buying Zynga, purchased Bungie for $3.7 billion. Both Barrett's initial filing and Sony's first response are aggressive. His claim and their answer include the kind of details or hints of future details that can read as pressure for the other side to settle or get the whole affair out of public view. That's the other key detail to this in some ways for Bungie as well, is that they do either they don't want this bad PR. Like, as a company, they probably don't want the bad PR, but Christopher Barrett probably doesn't really care as much. He wants his integrity so he can continue to find work as a game developer, I imagine. So I think that Bungie has more to lose in terms of integrity and reputation, right? Obviously, if he's meant to be paid $45 million, he probably has enough money that he can, you know, fuck off and just live life in a house somewhere and not worry about bills too much. But for Bungie, they don't want the bad PR. But it seems like he's, you know, with all the different people that are coming forward with this, it seems like it's not looking good for him at this time. We'll see if there's more text messages here or more evidence against him. In the December lawsuit, for example, Barrett wove the story of his time at Bungie and his work on the company's games with indications that he'd witnessed misconduct elsewhere in the studio. In that filing, for example, his lawyers state that behavior was known at Bungie included a very senior Bungie executive texted Barrett and others sexually suggestive material, including lewd photographs, texts about his sex life, including graphic descriptions of particular sex acts. Goddamn, Bungie, what the hell are you doing out there? And texts concerning the appearance of women working for Bungie. And Bungie maintained an email channel that shared lewd and semi-okay content of the entire studio. Those images were occasionally shared on a projector at studio events. Yikes. Sony, who had not commented on the Barrett suit in December, addressed those claims vaguely in this new filing. Lawyers for Sony and Bungie state defendants lack knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to the truth of the allegations. This is where things could get really interesting and really bad for Barrett, though, in some ways, right? Because if he does push too hard and actually he could potentially lose, I mean, Bungie could countersue him maybe for defamation. I'm not sure if that would really hold up, but depends. It depends on what the Bungie, how much Bungie really wants to go after him here. I don't see Bungie settling for a massive payout like that, though. A massive $45 million payout. I think that, at least at this point in time, I think that this will probably continue on, and we'll see what the trial says, what the verdict is on this one, right? As for the overall claims against him, Barrett's position is that Sony could not have legitimately fired him for cause and thus withheld 8-figure Bungie purchase payouts unless he committed specific prohibited acts such as engage in any financial improprieties or solicit any improper sexual relationships with his colleagues. In its response, Sony states defendants vehemently deny the allegation that Barrett did not engage in any conduct that could be the basis for finding of cause. The lawsuit is he said, they said, with both sides digging in, to be determined on how far this one goes. So there it is. That is everything so far. My opinion overall of this is that it doesn't look good for Barrett overall in terms of winning this. I feel like if I had to predict it, I think he probably loses it. Do I think that Bungie would fire him just to not give him his payout? There's several other people that they also had to pay out a lot of money to, right? It would have been Luke Smith and all the others that left as well, and that would have had a similar stake in the company. And they got their payout, and they obviously had no allegations against them. So I think that it's an interesting point to bring up right there is how far did he cross the line there? And did he cross the line far enough for a jury, right? For a trial to say, you were terminated rightfully, like it was within Bungie's rights to terminate you due to your misconduct. And if so, then obviously, that's the end of it. And that's going to be great PR for Bungie overall to win that and have that. But if they lose, if Bungie were to somehow lose, if a trial were to say, listen, Barrett, you're really creepy and weird, but like you didn't deserve to be fired and not have your $45 million payout. So you win because even though you're being kind of creepy, clearly, it's not enough to be terminated. So here's your money. And then that would look really bad for Bungie. That would make Bungie look like they were super greedy and just wanted to save money by terminating this guy. Although I would say that I feel like Bungie is trying to do the right thing there. And, when these people came forward, these employees came forward, I think that was probably the best response they could have, right? And the whole $45 million that looms with it is hugely impactful in this, right? Normally you would see a situation like this and it wouldn't be so much money over it. Like it would just be, in my mind, I'm picturing a scenario where it's like just a lower level employee that makes this sort of misconduct and then gets fired, and we don't really hear about it probably, right? But because he's such a big player in Bungie, 25-year veteran, game director of Destiny 2, game director of Marathon, like clearly he was one of the biggest and most powerful workers for Bungie, and this is a crazy situation. And I'm really interested to see how it ends. If you want to stay up to date on this case, make sure, again, you're subscribed to the channel with notifications on, because as soon as we figure out what's going on with this, we're going to bring you an update. That's a wrap on this one, though. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.